If any of y'all have been on the internet for any time in the past 2 weeks, you've noticed a lot of Kamala people are saying that she's likely to win. In fact, that the polls have completely flipped on their heads and that really the momentum is with the Democratic Party. Let's address why that is actually not true and how this is going to prove to be correct going forward. So before we beat the allegations, let's go ahead and look at them. Okay, so people are on a sugar high, as has been pronounced by me before. The Harris polls are definitely looking better. Okay, you look at the swing states, Harris is carrying the vast majority of these right now. And in fact, when you look at the ones that Trump is winning, it's like North Carolina, Arizona, Nevada, the ones that are necessary to win, of course, but not the deepest, profound victories that you would want, like being up in Pennsylvania or Michigan. So again, electoral count wise, those matter more than per se Nevada or Arizona. Okay, so this is interesting. The race is definitely taking a shift. Now, is it really a blue wave or is it just a trembling that people are misconstruing? Okay, is this a sort of water park fake faux ocean environment where you have machines pulsating waves, or is it a real ocean environment? You know, because a lot of this could be astroturfed. The media is obviously very liberally slanted. The question is the polling also slanted? Well, let's look at 2020. So in 2020, we saw that pollsters varied in different opinions, obviously, but there's obviously current trends that we can extrapolate from this. Okay, so this is poll aggregation. You see all these dots, all sorts of different polls. The point being is that the day before the election, you notice that Joe Biden was leading in the aggregate by 8.4%. Joe went on to win by only 4.5% of the popular vote. That is to say that the polls almost doubled the amount he was going to win by, theoretically, which shows that they have a liberal bias. What happened in 2016 when you saw all these people that get paid 7 figures a year to be smart on politics get outsmarted by people in the working class that actually voted for Trump over Hillary? In 2016, these people were caught with their pants down, these elites, because they have liberally slanted data. And even if they're biased, they probably don't want to look stupid on camera. And so when Anderson Cooper or Don Lemon or whoever ends up actually like, oh my God, Donald Trump won, they didn't see it coming because they're being fed fake news. You look at this polling again, they overestimated Biden by a ton. Now let's look at Rasmussen, who is going to be a big fixture in this video. Rasmussen has recently been taking flack as like a Republican partisan pollster, which you could say, okay, you look at their YouTube channel and they are pretty sympathetic to Trump, I could gather. That being said, I think that they have a level of objectivity that people on the left are not giving them credit for being or having. You see this, okay, the week before the election in 2020, Rasmussen had Trump losing to Biden by 1 percentage point. Okay. Now, what's interesting about this, guys? So look at this. They had Trump winning 47% of the popular vote and Biden with 48. Okay, well, let's look at this. Biden ended up with 51 and Trump ended up with 47. So they had the Trump part right, and they had Trump losing by 1 percentage point in the popular vote. Trump ended up losing by 4.5. Okay, so what does that mean for you guys? Well, they were off by 3.5 percentage points. The aggregate overall was off by 4 percentage points. And so even though they're allegedly biased towards Trump, they still had Trump losing the popular vote, which again, if they're so biased, they wouldn't have that being the case. And moreover, it's not in the best interest of a campaign to be super favorable to their own odds, because then why the hell are you even trying? You know, like if you could just cook up a poll that has like Trump winning by 20, then why even work? And so it behooves people, even if they are like self-sponsored polls, to be at least a little accurate. And so you can see that even the conservative, like Trafalgar polling, all these polls were closer than what the liberals had expected in 2016 and 20, even if they were slanted towards Trump in relative terms. Now, here's another major reason as to why the polling has been getting worse for Donald Trump. Basically, the truth is that while Kamala was about as unpopular as Joe Biden was before the debate performance and the disaster we saw on TV live, the truth is that she is still that unpopular. It's just that the perception is different, or at least not the perception, but the calculus of the voter is different. When you're calling people and you're asking them who you're supporting, it's not who you like better. It's more so what who has the shiniest turd, so to speak, who smells the least bad. And so when you make it that calculus, when you make it that dichotomy, Harris is not so hateable now, because now it's Trump, who you really hate as a liberal, and Harris, who at least is nominally on your side. That's a big difference. Okay, for example, the favorability of Nikki Haley against Donald Trump in a primary would be putrid for Nikki Haley, but if you put her against Kamala, all of a sudden a lot of people that found Nikki Haley to be a boss mom and kind of annoying, well, all of a sudden it becomes a boss babe, and you're like, okay, well, this is still better than the Democrat, which is to say, obviously, that is the same calculus people are having today. So if you look at the unapproval or the spread, the negativity, okay? So Harris is down negative 5.6 percentage points, okay? And you might say, oh, well, that's a loser. But if you look at Trump, he's down by negative 7.9. And so he's not doing hot either. Now, granted, this is still better than what he's usually at. In fact, after what happened at the Capitol prior to him leaving office like 3 or 4 years ago, he was like at 36% approval rating. And now he's at least at 44-ish. And so The point being is that if it becomes an election on just the premise of Trump or no, that's not a good sort of thing for Americans. And the polling right now is having that be the synopsis. The people right now that had Harris down 17 points in negative approval, now she's at like 5. And so it's not because, again, she's so like charismatic, she has like all this riz. No, it's not because she's a brat, as people on TikTok say. It's because people are just saying we prefer her over Trump. Prior to her running against Trump, they were judging her on her own merits. Okay, for example, Ron DeSantis, he was up like 30 percentage points in approval in Florida, which was a purple state, when he won. Okay, but when he went against Trump, he lost by 30. Why is that? Because when you judged him on his own merits and as governor, he was cool, he was competent. But when it came when we need a big dog, a maverick to be president. Okay, now you look like a little sniveling little puppet against Donald Trump, and so he lost by a lot. That's the calculus people need to understand. So the polls are not representative of Kamala being this like great, like Vatican leading, Pope person. She's not a great person. It's just that obviously people are comparing her to Trump, and you saw this coming. People with a brain knew that this was going to be a close election no matter what. Now think about it. In 2020, Joe Biden won by the skin of his teeth in the Electoral College by making it a referendum on Trump, a referendum on the virus, a referendum on the lockdowns, a referendum on crime, a referendum on a bad economy. These things sunk Donald Trump, plus he was unlikable to a lot of people, which made him lose. Okay? The point being is that it's evident that this race is different because, on one hand, you had a guy who was unpopular in Trump versus a guy who was very, very generic and bland like Biden in 2020. And you had a bad scenario with the whole virus stuff and whatever. And so Trump sunk, okay, theoretically. Now, when it comes to this year, 2024, it's Trump, who, again, is not super popular across the spectrum, but also Kamala's not super popular either. So you have two hateable people nominally, and then you've got a bad economy, and you have horrible scenario with the whole Democrat incumbency. So what that basically means is that we have an inversion of 2020, whereas, yeah, Trump wins in 24, but it's not by as much as people say on the right. And so people are having a little bit of a shit fit when it comes to this whole Twitter spectrum. We're going to get right into it. All right, so on Twitter, you see a whole different world, okay? To be completely clear, people are losing their minds. These people obviously need to touch grass. In my case, maybe touch a cactus and don't get a thorn on you because there's no grass in Arizona. But basically, you'll notice that the polling has dried up as of right now, which is odd because, again, when Harris became the person to replace Biden, people were like, oh, thank God it's not somebody who's not mentally incapable. Now it's somebody who's mentally incompetent. So it's maybe a lateral move at best. But the point being is that people were somewhat happy about that, hence why the sugar high. But this is not booger sugar, Colombian booger sugar. This is not the elite stuff. This is like cut with baking soda and Tylenol. I mean, it's just a disaster waiting to happen. You're going to see horrible things happen for the Democrats because, again, the polling is not super recent. This aggregate is not great. The polling has not been getting the funding it needs. Kamala being up by half a percentage point in the popular vote, as you can see here on the far upper right corner, is not cutting it for winning the election. She probably needs to win the popular vote by about 5 percentage points to beat Trump. Okay, that's just how it works mathematically. That being said, we're going to consult the Twitter. Now, here's a little bit of nuance for people that you'll notice right here. Okay, so pay attention to this tweet, okay? So Rasmussen will report that there were 6 non-Rasmussen general election polls on RCP, which is the aggregation website for this whole thing, the week of the J.D. Vance pick, which was taken by the media to be a bad move by Trump, right? Because he's like, oh, he's so conservative. Okay, there was only one general election poll this week, this past 7 days, okay? Isn't that odd? Isn't that odd, folks? You're getting a week closer to an election that we're less than like 90 days away from, but they're not putting out polls this week. Why is that? And then you have this whole coordinated thing. Perhaps. Now, that's a conspiracy, but the point being is that we know for a fact that Kamala has been basically, very reticent to speak off the cuff, which a lot of politicians do all the time. I mean, you saw Obama 15 years ago. I was like 4, so maybe I don't remember, and I'm making it up. But the point is that politicians back in the day, and Trump does still, talk to people, just gift a gab. You need it, okay? Just talk, freebase and freestyle. But, as if like 8 Mile were a Saw movie for Kamala Harris, she's terrified of choking, and so she's just relying on a teleprompter, and she has been for over 2 weeks now. Which, you can see that on Fox News and chalk it up to like, oh God, the right wing are just trying to nitpick. But these are serious issues. If you're trying to appeal to people in the Rust Belt and you can't answer questions that are pretty simple, just off the cuff, what does that say about you? And so anyway, this is actually very conspicuous, okay? This seems like a very white collar first world problem, but this is actually really serious when you're nerdy like me. To not have any polling a week closer to an election you're less than 3 months away from in the first place is actually absurd. So like I said, you might see the gambling aspect. You could say, well, Polymarket, predict it, whatever. Vegas is saying that obviously Trump is losing to Harris, and when it comes to prospects of winning. So again, 52 to 46% odds. So that's a negative 6-point spread for Donald Trump. Ironic because again, Trump is going to win the state of Vegas, the state that Vegas resides in. Oh my God, was that a Biden moment? Don't we miss our president? Kidding. But anyway, the point is that obviously you can see that maybe not the fix is in, but you can see why people are making a lot of mental foibles when it comes to how the race is shaping up. People are not understanding why the momentum is different and why it's actually not indicative of a major trend. Okay, what we're looking at right now is a sugar high participated and actually enabled by the mass media. We see a Kamala Harris who knows her best strategy is to make it a referendum on Trump and to just shut up and hope that people just view her as a generic person in general. And Tim Walz obviously has this undergoat of stolen valor allegations, which are too convoluted to explain in a short video like this. But the point is that things are going downhill for the Democrats. Maybe people don't see it for what it is yet, but I'm going to be so happy if and when I am proven correct in the following couple weeks. Okay, so we do have the Democratic convention coming up pretty soon. And moreover, I think that we can do a final prediction as of right now. So again, if you listen to the polls, you would see that they probably have Trump up here, have Georgia as a toss-up. He would win North Carolina, so he's at 252. So he's in a good position to win. There's about 5 states left here, and I will say that the polls are wrong. Okay, so right now they have Kamala winning the popular vote by 0.5, but they've had that number for several days, which is odd because again, they're not polling anymore, which is really weird. It seems like maybe the polling that they have done shows pretty bad results for Harris Walz, but we'll see how bad that is soon. Now, so anyway, I think personally Trump will probably win the popular vote by like 2. But we're not sure yet. Again, like I said, it used to be a better race for Trump when Biden was still there in a steep decline. Now the decline's behind a cloak, so it's like a Wizard of Oz motif minus actually the guy controlling anything. So you pull the curtain and he's asleep probably. But anyway, moving on, I think Trump's going to win Georgia by like 3. I think that he'd win Pennsylvania by like 2. I think that he'd he's gonna win Wisconsin barely, but Michigan is super hard. Okay, I was at Michigan. I went to my where I was born basically, and these people voted for Trump and Gretchen Whitmer, and you're like, what the this is pretty rural Michigan, but so I'm not sure what to believe anymore. That being said, Kamala has recently gotten in some trouble over having discrepancies in her record and her statements in regards to whether or not she's going to be sympathetic to Gaza or put in a ceasefire on the condition of X and Y that is disfavorable to the Arabs in Dearborn, Michigan. These voters matter, okay, mathematically. That being said, I think that Trump will edge out Harris and Walz in Michigan, but maybe I'm biased, and you know what? God damn it, I am. But anyhow, that is the video. 312 electoral votes for Trump Vance, and Harris Walz ends up with the meager 226, worse than Hillary. It's kind of sad, a little pathetic, but anyway, I hope you saw my point. Like the video if you agree with me, like the video if you like the effort, if you disagree with me, and if you do, then comment down below what your point is and I'll address it. Okay, so I'll see y'all on the next one. Adios.